TGIF, and everyone, it's Cathy Sabater. I'm here with one of my infamous realtors here in San Diego, Collette Jimenez. Welcome back from Hawaii.
Aloha. My heart is still in Hawaii, but I'm
Mhm.
happy to be here. And as promised,
Mhm.
we said last week that this week we would talk about short sales. So I'm going to jump right in, tell you what a short sale is, what the process is, the implications. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. So, what is a short sale? A lot of times people think, oh, it means I'm going to sell my house real quick. The process is going to be short. The reality is there's a shortfall or a deficit in what's owed on the property. So, say, for example, you owe $500,000 on your loan. The house is worth $400,000. There's a deficit there. And you may find yourself in a position where you need to sell, but you have a deficit. So, that's what a short sale is. And we're going to talk about how that affects you. Um, First and foremost, why would you need to short sell? In 2007, I started seeing short sales, and we were flooded with them. But we're in 2025 where the market has increased. So what would put you in a position where you might need to short sell? Well, if you've had a financial hardship and you've overmortgaged your home to where there's no longer equity in your home, that could potentially put you in a position of needing to short sell. So what that process looks like in the state of California is first identifying your financial hardship. So the most common cases of financial hardship are job loss or income reduction, divorce, medical expenses, and or death in the family. So those are the most common reasons for short selling that we see. And so the process starts with identifying your financial hardship and reaching out and contacting your lender, alerting them to the fact that you're encountering this financial hardship. And you start with their short sale package, which includes submitting a hardship letter, proof of income and assets, your bank returns, your tax returns, and your bank statements. And then we do a comparative market analysis, a CMA, or comps in layman's term. So that's where your realtor is going to pull those comps, me, and look at the current value of the home in the condition that it's in. And then you get it listed and you move into getting an offer on that property. So once you've gotten an offer on the property, it's been listed, say you have 4 or 5 offers. Normally, I'd sit down with my clients and I'd say, hey, sellers, we have these 5 offers. Let's go over them. In this case, I review those offers with the bank instead of the sellers. And so I submit all of those offers over to the bank, and they choose the offer that they feel is the most likely to come to fruition in the short sale process. And they're going to review those offers, and they're going to order what's called a BPO, or a broker's price opinion. That is very similar to an appraisal, and it's used specifically in short sales. And so they have a BPO specialist go out and ascertain the value of the home in their opinion, and they submit that to the bank. And then the bank goes and they may counter the offer that they chose. So, say in our scenario, we owe 500, it's worth 400. The BPO comes back at say 395, and we have an offer at 350. So they're going to counter offer. The bank is going to send a counter offer to that buyer to come up in purchase price and terms. And then once everybody's all on the same page, you move into escrow, you close escrow, and the short sale itself is done. So then what happens after that? So after the short sale, the bank is going to record that short sale in a number of ways. They're going to, and this is where the tax and credit implications come into play. So, if you will, Kat, can you talk to me from a lender standpoint, what that looks like if you're seeing a buyer come to you who's previously had a short sale? What does that look like?
So when we run the credit from all 3 credit bureaus. And depending on how the bank reports it to the credit bureaus will indicate how it's going to affect your credit. So similar to a credit card, if you owed $100, but you only paid them 50, will the bank said this was paid in full and we're good to go? Or are they going to say, hey, you only gave me 50 and therefore there's a deficit, right?
Right.
Those two different ways make a big difference on how it's going to impact you because it's closed, but it's not closed because they're saying you owe money. So most of the time, the banks are going to have it so it really does look like it's closed. And then most people are either going to do a FHA loan because you only usually have to wait 2 years. And if you're a veteran, you could potentially use your VA loan again. We'll have to talk about the implications on if you owe money for the VA, right? Because then different calculations are done. Then you could potentially, after you purchase your home, then go into a conventional loan. But because underwriting guidelines are changed almost every year, sometimes if to get a conventional loan, it could be 4 years, it could be 5 years. That's one of the years that always change. But FHA, because it's insured, and VA, because it's guaranteed loans, that's why it takes a shorter amount of time because the bank is not really losing money. Guess who's writing the check? FHA and VA. So
Yeah.
that's the difference between the two.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you. So that's from a lending standpoint. So what those implications of the credit on of a short sale on your credit look like is um, you have the immediate impact after you record. And typically what you're going to see is you're going to see a drop in your credit score about 100 to 150 points, which is heavy. Okay. But that's going to vary depending on your prior credit history. So if you had an 800 credit score, you don't have any little dinks and things here, it's not going to impact your credit score as heavily. And it also depends on how the bank, again, records that short sale. Is it settled for less than the full amount due? Is it paid settled? How it gets recorded will impact your credit differently. And that can remain on your credit up to 10 years. When you're getting into uh, where you've contacted me and I've referred you to Kat and you're like, hey, we're ready to buy, what you're going to look at is about 6 months before that's due to drop off, you get in touch and we start looking and pull the credit. And do we need to write a letter? Do we need to, because oftentimes the bureaus will, if you're in a position where you're just right at that, you're butting up against that time frame, they'll just drop it off for you. And so you're typically qualifying, like Kat said, 2 to 4 years, depending on the new type of loan and what you've done with your credit after that short sale. Compared to a foreclosure that we talked about like last week, a short sale is generally less damaging than a foreclosure, especially in the eyes of future lenders. So it's not that you had a foreclosure and they had to take the home back and that you made a good faith effort to pay as much as the market would allow, right? And so those implications are very different. Second mortgages and HELOCs will record that as well differently. So depending on your financial situation, depending on if you have a home loan, a second, or a HELOC, those are all different moving parts. They get recorded differently. A primary lender will likely waive the deficiency where junior lien holders and HELOCs may not be willing to do that. So that's all part of the negotiation. And then the tax implications are that any previously forgiven mortgage debt could potentially be considered taxable income. And so you have to reach out to your tax consultant and have a conversation with them to see how that is going to affect your taxes. So just to summarize, what are the pros and cons of a short sale? The pros are that you're avoiding foreclosure. It's less damaging to your credit report than a foreclosure is, and it helps you qualify potentially for a future mortgage sooner. And there's often no out-of-pocket costs. The bank approves all of the fees that are on your settlement statement. They make an approval, they hand you an approval letter, and everything has to be followed per those approvals, including commissions, any repairs, credits, anything going to the new purchaser. All of that is approved through the bank. The cons are the credit impact. Even though it's less than a foreclosure, you are still going to see an impact. And then it is a time consuming process. I can tell you that I've negotiated over 100 short sales starting in 2007 when obviously the market imploded a little bit there. And out of all of those, I have closed all but three. So I have a really high close rate. But I will tell you, the process is arduous, and sometimes buyers just can't hang in. The process can take 3 to 6 months. And, if a buyer's like, hey, I have a lease ending and I need to get in a house in the next 90 days, I can't hang out that long. Then they often find other homes. In all of the short sales I've done, there was only one that the original buyer who submitted that first offer that was accepted by the bank was actually the buyer that closed. Oftentimes, you have to remarket the property and find new buyers. And then you go through that process all over again, because each approval letter that you get from the bank, you have to have the approval letter in hand in order to close. And each approval letter is buyer specific. So, a lot of moving parts. If you find yourself in a position where you're in need of a short sale expert and you have to get your house on the market due to divorce proceedings or having a lack of equity in your home, reach out to me, Collette Jimenez with Century 21 Affiliated, 619-838-1696. Reach out to Miss Cat and we will get you situated.
Thanks, Collette, for coming on.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Have a great